So we are in, I think we're in the Cotswolds. Are we in the Cotswolds?
I think so.
Is it the Cotswolds? I don't really know. Well, okay, the story starts 2 days ago on Saturday. I went to EMF, Electromagnetic Field Festival. It's a festival where lots of interesting things happen. Yeah, well, we're going to go and pick something up that I saw on Saturday, drove home, rented a van, and we're going back again to try and get this thing. So the story is that Gem Finer built this machine called the supercomputer. It is, I don't know what it is. In fact, that's the thing. Nobody really knew at the festival. There was basically a tent that was set up with this supercomputer in pieces. I think I understand what happened was it was an art installation that Gem made, and it had sat in a storage container on public display. And at some point, it stopped being on public display, and it was just stored. Gem decided to give it to the EMF festival to somewhat be split apart and maybe experimented with to see what happens. We got there on about the third day of the festival, and it was still a pile of stuff on the floor, and it just seemed a real shame for it to get split up and stuff. So yeah, I'm driving over to figure out what the fudge it is, do a video on how the fudge it works, because this video right here that is on top of it is about it. You can't really grasp what it actually is. It's an amazing video and it's an amazing machine. I just want to know what it does. EVMF, Easter, there we go. So the thing is when I left on Saturday night, there were people, awesomely, having a go and trying to solve it, which was amazing. So I still haven't seen what they've done. Here's a video of them having to figure out.
I will plink some notes out. It's going to see from one of them. It's going to drive down to one of these, and it'll keep playing that note.
What we're actually doing is we're very methodically and carefully breaking Look Mum, No Computer's new toy.
For all I know, it might be complete. They might have finished it out and figured it out, and it'll be an easy job. If not, it might still be a pile. It's over there. You can see the main tent's still up. There was a couple of tents. I think that one was the talk tent. Thank you.
Radio will let you know.
Okay, we've got past checkpoint 1 with relative ease. Now we've got to figure out what logistics is. These festivals are always so confusing. They're always like, oh yeah, go over to the other side, get a pass. Stay there for a sec and I'll just jump out. There's nobody in logistics. We just got to wait for the poo truck. We move poo at gmail.com. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm nervous. I have no idea what this thing's gonna look like right now. It's been literally in the middle of a functioning festival for about 48 hours since I've seen it, with access in there. Oh, yeah, come and have a look. Come and have a look. So, all of these tubes are supposedly for the marbles to go through. There's apparently different sizes of marbles, so I don't know. No. The marbles don't even fall between them. It's the wrong size of marbles. Your guess is as good as mine. Let's get in the van and see what the fudge it is. It's a lot fuller than you think. Climb in, see if you can see it. Yeah, all of that stuff. And yeah, I'm going to try and put it together this week, but I'm going to have to ask Gem. Let's ask Gem on the way home.
The control signal generator ×2. I saw 2 of them go in the back. Balls into the rows of 4 computational units. These balls are for testing positive results. See computational unit section.
Yeah, that one.
That one, okay. So computational unit, so 5 rows of gates and testing for blah 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 blah.
You know the blah 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 blah, it's probably the useful stuff.
Okay, so these 8 computational units, 1 for each combination of 3 bits. Each one has 5 rows of gates, 1 row for each cell. Each row has 3 gates, which are then ANDed together. 1 for testing the state of the left-hand neighbour, 1 for testing its own state, and 1 for testing the state of the right-hand neighbour.
So I've been staring at the pile for probably an hour now, and I just have not got a clue where to start. I've emailed Gem. I'm going to wait for a reply on that, but in the meantime, I guess we'll just take it pragmatically, bit by bit, have a look at each bit maybe. Let's have a look at the first bit. So this right here is apparently the computation unit. There is one of 8 of these computation units, as you can see right here. And it's sort of like the game of life. So I think this It has 5 different rows on it, and there's 8 rows of 5, and it's got a 3-bit number in each of these rows. So there's 8 possibilities on each of these 5 rows. And yeah, how that information correlates to absolutely anything useful whatsoever, I'm still not completely sure. But we got a little bit of broken bit, so we'll fix that quick and we'll just put some marbles through it, see what it does. Right, so let's see what happens. I've got a marble. Let's just drop it in one. Oh, it's gone over it. Oh, it's come out the bottom. I'm assuming they're bypassing the whole thing. Okay, it's off. Now, if we turn it on, I think we flick this down. Oh, should be on now, I think. Oh, now I've gone down into this, and then it goes out. What? Really interesting. There's also entrances on the back for the marble, so we put the marbles in these holes, and it flicks down these gates. Okay, that sort of makes sense. We flick one in here. Oh no, that one's too big. That's the other thing, there's different sizes of marbles. Aha, I see. So if we get all of the gates to do what they're supposed to do, which is this one on, this one on, this one's already on. So if you put a marble in this one, it'll actually switch off. Let's do that. Wait. So now instead of the ball going all the way to the end and falling down to the bottom, it should come out of this one, I think. So just pop it in. Oh, oh, oh. Whee! Oh. Oh yeah. So in total, there's 8 of these. I think they're called the computation units. This thing over here, there's 5 of these, and these are called cells, I think. So this looks like it sits at the top of the machine, whatever this machine is. If you look at the top, I think these are what you would call marble reservoirs, where a bunch of marbles sit in here, and then there's a bunch of holes here that end up feeding through to the underside down here. And then these will escape out of the pipes into the computation units below. I think that's how it is. And how they let the marbles out is by a big marble on the front. There's a really big marble in this system. With this, when it travels down through these points, oh, it's gone the wrong way. That actually opens up the floodgates and lets one set of marbles out of each of the holes that are at the bottom of this reservoir over into the computation unit thingamagoops. Anyway, I've dropped that marble somewhere. I think the only thing we could do is start bolting it together, because I don't think we can test any of it in isolation, because it seems like it all seems to want to work together, or we're going to lose all our marbles.
So I started by looking through the copious box section that used to be the frame, and yeah, none of it really made sense, but it was enough to kind of figure out where things were supposed to go. But yeah, none of the bits were the same size, which will make sense later on, because it was all built to spec inside a shipping container, so we're not going to get it exactly how it was.
So none of the parts were fitting together, so it seemed like a bit of an impossible challenge that I set myself to try and get it done in a week, but hey ho. But luckily, we got in touch with Jem, who is the artist behind the machine, and we had a chat. Hey Jem, how you doing?
Hi Sam, okay, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. So yeah, I've just got back yesterday with the supercomputer in a van, back from EMF Festival. I guess
Fantastic.
I'm looking at a pile of stuff. Like, what actually is it?
It's basically a sculpture of an equation, right? So, but a mechanical sculpture. So it's like a sort of computational sculpture, and what it computes is a cellular automata, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, you know, people often familiar with something called the game of life, which is like a 2D grid where, you know, each cell sort of looks at all its neighbors, and depending how many are alive or dead, then it either lives in the next generation or dies, or if it's an empty cell, it might come to life. So just by sort of going through these generations of, you know, of creating new cells, killing off others, you get these amazing complex kind of patterns and stuff. So this supercomputer actually is a one-dimensional cellular automata. So it's like 5 cells, 5 bits, which are either 0 or 1, off or on, alive or dead. And in each sort of iteration, each cell compares its own state with that of its immediate neighbors. There's kind of 8 possibilities of what it can be. It could be dead, and it could be 0 and its neighbors could be 0, all up to it being 1 and both its neighbors being 1. In all that pile of stuff, there's the sort of heart of it all is like 8 computational units. Each one is sort of testing for a certain condition. So there's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, etc. And you'll see they have like 5 rows in them, 3 gates in each. You've also got, in all that stuff, 5 units, which are basically the bits or the cells. The cells release ball bearings into the backs of these computational units. They sort of set the gates so that you can test for what the condition of each cell is. And then once they're set, there's a sort of these 2 hoppers that are like control signal generators. And what they do is they release ball bearings through the front of these computational units. If everything's correct, all the gates will be flat and a ball will roll all the way through it and down to the output unit. You'll have seen it's like a 5-note xylophone. Each cell has a different note. It's like the black notes on a piano. Mm-hmm. So a ball will run down, it'll strike the xylophone, it'll go ding. It'll feed back the state of the output, which then becomes the next input. If the gates aren't all set right, the balls just sort of drop out and fall into the bottom. So all that originally fitted in a 20-foot shipping container, just about. I mean, there's very little room. In fact, there's too little room. A ball bearing was trying to get from one end right to the other. There wasn't really enough sort of a gradient to make the journey. So the tubes that they run through would be sort of more like a roller coaster to try and get them enough momentum to keep going. And you'd get one working fine, but then you'd nudge another and that would stop working and so on. So, but for it actually to run successfully, I had to be inside this container, constantly fixing stuff because, things would get stuck and fall out and so on.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm going to have to figure out what all these bits do, but there's a lot of information on the website, so I'm going to try and follow those, and you've sent me some instructions. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all, it's actually all the information's there, but it's really hard to put it, it's hard for me to put it in a kind of linear form. So it's more, it's all there, but you have to kind of figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, well, the way it seems to work doesn't strike me as linear because there's at least 3 systems running at the same time. Well, I'm going to go and try and get building because I've only got a couple of days, so I'm going to try and bash it together and see if it can do something. See you in a bit.
All right, bye, Sam.
I also reached out to Darius, the engineer who designed the mechanisms with Gem, but I haven't heard back from him. But it's all right because we've got enough to work on now. Let's have another crack at it.
Now, after chatting to Gem, it all started to make sense. A lot of mysteries were solved, but we had to make up a brand new frame. I decided to reuse the box section because it was there and it looked in the style of it, but I just had to figure out a way of making it work. First, we start with the 6 computation devices and the readout device. I only went with 6 of the rules because 2 of them were broken, so I used those for spares. As you can tell, I've been testing it all, and the xylophone's working at least. Ooh. Now we're going to see if we can get one of the ball bearings going from the computational device over to the readout. So first we're going to set the gates so it passes straight through. Chuck in a ball bearing, watch it go through, watch it fall down, and... kablammy! Yeah, so it's all still working, luckily. Now, with the power of gravity, we're going to use a bunch more pipes and wire all of the rules into the readout device, like so, and then we can test them all and make a racket of basically a pentatonic 5-note scale. But this was quite a challenge because I was getting the roller coaster to work, so they all would kind of go straight to the readout device. I started running out of usable sizes in the box section, so we had to crack out the angle grinder and make a higher platform for the rest of the machines to sit on. The rest of the machines are the cells and the testers. These drop the ball bearings into the computational device, so it's about putting them up there. Of course, we need to put new mounting points in there because all the box section is different. I decided to bulk it up because there's no a shipping container holding it together, so I've got some diagonal bits so it all doesn't fall down, you know. The difference between the testers and the cells is the testers have 20 holes and the cells have 24 holes. The testers are feeding 4 computational devices each, and each of them need 5 marbles each, so that's 5 times 4. So I'm putting some of the pipes into the computational devices and then dropping some in and seeing what happens. All of the gates are on right now because I'm testing them all, so it's going to make a lovely pentatonic racket.
So what you just heard then were all of the balls going down into all of the inputs. That's what happens, but the thing is right now is all of the gates are on, they're on go. That means all of the marbles are going to travel through and down into the readout panel at the bottom. So you heard all of the xylophones. What we need to do now is adjust the gates. So some of the marbles end up going into the waste, the garbage truck, whilst the correct ones go into the readout panel. And how we do that is a bit of a head fudge. All I know is we need another 15 parts per the rules. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 15 is 90. Oh, actually, and we need the outputs of that. So 90 times 2, that's 180. So I've got to put 180 pipes in now. From the 5 cells on the top, these are the living cells from the cellular automata, and those go down and correlate to the xylophones, and in the end, the bits readout on the output. I don't want to get into too much detail right now before we get it working, but basically each of the cells, the bits on the top, need to be wired into the input that correlates to them, but also the input that correlates to its neighbour, and also the input that correlates to the other neighbours. So each of the cells of the rules have to connect to 3 things: itself, the one next to it, and the one next to it on the other side. So yeah, this is going to be a head fudge to figure out which ones go where.
I then spent the day putting the pipes in. Each of the cells goes down to its own gate readout, but it also goes to its neighbour's readout. So that's how cellular automata works. So it means that the neighbours and you affect how the next output's going to read. Then we put in all of the exit marble pipes.
Day number 4, I've got to be honest, I'm not as far as I thought I was going to be, and that's down to the fact I didn't really account for the sheer mass of wires, I mean tubes. All of them are wired in, tubed in now, so all of the marbles should be falling from the top down to here. There's a couple that are still getting hung up. I've left them. I want to keep on moving and then, you know, finesse it a little bit later on. But apart from finishing off the marble return setup, it should all be wired in. I think the first thing I'm going to do today is wire in all of the motors that require constant 12 volts. That's the ones for the Archimedes screws and also the ladders for the marble runs.
This 12 volt 10 amp power supply came with it, so I decided to plonk it in and wire it up. It seems to work, which is good. I decided to reuse as much cable as possible from the original machine, but that meant a lot of kind of detangling, as you can see right here. There was a lot of long ones, luckily, so I reused them, going from the power supply over to all of the motors. Maybe we'll have this running on a relay later on. This is an agitator that moves the marbles around so they kind of move into the outputs. I crimped the output so we didn't have to keep on, you know, soldering and desoldering things. This is one of the Archimedes screws that lifts the larger marbles up. The larger marble gets stopped by a solenoid. The trigger lifts the solenoid. That falls down and then opens up the gates for all the smaller marbles to drop down. This is one of the lifts that lifts the marbles back up to the top. And then this is all of the motors running at the same time. It looks pretty cool, right? I wasn't sure how this was done, so I 3D printed a little mount to connect a tube to the output of the exits of all of the ball bearings, so they fall down into there and then they travel over to the lifters. I made this little relay box, which we're going to talk about in the next video about this, but it means we can wire the gates from the outputs back into themselves so we can run it in a cycle.
So for this video, it is as much together as I'm gonna be able to do it. It turns out we need a little bit more height on the lifters, these things right here, the things that lift the marbles up to the top to let them go down into the cells and the testers. But I think without major modification, I'm going to be able to lift these up about 20 centimeters. I just need to lift the garbage runs for all of the marbles up a bit, and I think I can do that, which will give us a bit more height so we can get all the marbles to actually travel into the top, because that's a bit of a problem at the minute. Because of this, that one's not even plumbed in, it's just dropping marbles on the floor. It's currently not very musical either, but it is sort of working as a generative 5-bit output machine. So let's have a look at that. So let's pretend a couple of marbles have fallen down to the output. In order to start the whole thing, you need to have some sort of idea of what the output is, because it runs along. So I'm going to drop one in number 5. That's going to ding and it's going to roll down. And now it lands on this. There's actually a switch down there, so it notices it's landed. So let's put... Now those 3 lights are on because those 3 marbles are pushing down switches. So this is the output. So there's 5 bits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've got 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. So now that's going to be fed back into itself to drop marbles into the gates. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of cable and I'm going to trigger the relays to drop the marbles on those gates that are now on. Oh, and they're all gone down. So they're all flying down. Now I can do a test drop, and this is going to actually send out the other output. So we're going to clear the output. This is going to be on a solenoid, but right now I've got to just do it manually. Now I'm going to go and test it. This is when it's going to play the xylophones again. Oh! Okay, we've got... I thought I heard a different one. Yeah. We have got outputs. And now it's 00101. These gates should receive marbles on them. Okay, so have a look and see if you can notice any marbles landing in these separate gates. Okie dokie, let's see what we get. How do we do that? Oh yeah, test number 2. And test number 1. Most of them will go straight to the output because all of the rules won't be met, but there must be at least one that's gonna... There was one then. Oh. So, yeah, we've got the next output, 11101. Let's do it again, why not? Let's give it another go. Like I said, we need to do this manually because I haven't actually finished this bit yet. Soon it'll be electrically done. That's the rule set. Let's see what the next note or generative thingamajiggy is. Okay, so we've got 00101. Well, there we go. I hope that sort of shows you what it's supposed to do, even if it is very manual at the minute. So for this video, that's it for the supercomputer. I've got to be honest, I need a tiny bit of a break. I've not really worked with marbles before, and now I can understand how they can drive you mad, how you can definitely lose your marbles with marbles. In the next video in a few weeks, I'm going to be adding some solenoids to clear the marbles from the back of the readout, and also add solenoids to clear the gate marbles. And then it's about making the output and also the input MIDI controlled so we can make it a musical generative machine. It's sort of like a really big version of the cellular automata Eurorack module. So the MIDI inputs are going to be opening the cells depending on the outputs, open the test balls that run marbles through to the output. There's going to be 4 MIDI inputs, open the cells to drop the ball bearings into the gates, open the test droppers to drop them through the computation units into the output readout device, clear all the balls from the rule gates down into the waste disposal, and then clear the outputs. That's 4 MIDI inputs, and then there's going to be 5 outputs and also a 32-bit output, which is a mixture of all of them. Like you saw, the 5-bit output could be used for anything. For instance, this could be a countdown generator or a baby name generator. So if you want to call your baby Siskiyou, like it just said it, well, by all means do that. Anyway, when I get back on this, I'll be doing updates on Patreon before I put a video up. So if you want to see more information about it or other
other projects we're working on, then please check out over on Patreon, because the support really helps to be able to spend the time to do this and put videos out for you. But anyway, the link to Jem's information on the supercomputer and the website is below. I'm Look Mum No Computer. This is the supercomputer marble machine. And yeah, don't be scared to try it. Maybe don't mess with marbles though, unless you want to lose them.